I'm getting the signal that it is. Yep. We good?
Let me go back. Yep.
We good?
I still hear the dog.
I think we should be good.
It gave me the usual message. Okay, let's get started at 6:03. Welcome to the April 22nd, 2021 meeting of the Lake Lemon Board of Directors. Welcome to those of you who are joining us virtually out in our audience. We will start with, as we did last month, with public comment at the beginning of the meeting, and Mary Jane is all connected up to receive that information. MJ?
You turned it on, Adam? Is the live chat on?
Yes, it should be on.
Okay.
Are you seeing that, Alex?
Oh, I see Alex's test. But so far, nothing else has come in.
We have 8 people watching right now. 9.
Thank you. But you're not getting any input?
I'm
Maybe.
not getting any comments. Just Alex did a test and I saw that.
Okay. We'll give it a minute or two here just to make sure that, as I said last time, this change is intended to help us know what is on our public's minds as we are going through a meeting, so that we can have that information as we try to make decisions and vote.
Okay, we
While we're waiting, quick question for Adam.
Sure.
we actually have a comment now.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
We have a comment at 6:04 from Frank Van Overmeren. What is presented in the board packet and read is the opinion of the LLCD and LLCD attorney. It is not the opinion of the Indiana Public Access Counselor. Then at 6:05, Frank Van Overmeren said, the governor, by executive order, granted most state agencies and departments revisions of power, changes in schedule, and differing abilities to serve the residents of Indiana during the pandemic. And then Ann Roboleski has a comment that says, I did not get an email announcing the meeting. When did the emails go out?
Adam, I'll let you speak to that, or Alex, whoever.
I think the email went out on Monday from Constant Contact.
And then Susan Snyder-Salmon has a comment that says, thank you for the opportunity to listen and comment.
You're welcome.
I have a question based upon the emails going for the notification of the meetings, Adam. I mean, those board packets are posted on the LLCD website. So, you know, people can go and access that at any point.
That's
And
a
the
good
Constant
point.
Contact did go out on Monday.
Yes.
Yeah, the website is good backup, certainly, for that. Good point, Debbie.
I have another comment from Frank Van Overmeren. A case file was open with the Indiana Public Access Counselor prior to the executive session being conducted. The Indiana PAC elected to process an opinion to serve, or I think he means serve, the citizens of Indiana.
Thank you. Anything else?
Not yet.
Okay.
Want to give everybody another minute or two?
I'll give you another minute at 6:07. I think that's fair. Just to make sure, and then we'll commence. Awkward silence. I didn't think I'd have to get my flannel shirt out again, but I did.
I didn't think I'd wear my winter coat again, but I did.
78 next Tuesday is the projected forecast.
Yeah,
Okay.
yesterday we were working on the playground. It snowed in the morning and then blizzard about 12 o'clock down here.
Yeah, yes, it did. We have some additional comments.
Okay.
Steve Langman, what's going on with the barge?
We're up and running.
Okay. Steve Sims, I am not getting emails for these meetings either. I'm going to guess we need to look at the constant contact
List.
list.
I'll look into
Alex,
that.
can you look into that? Okay, thank you.
And if you email us at office@lakelemon.org, we can send you the link to sign up for the listserv.
Okay.
The
James,
other thing I would recommend is for people to check their spam filters as well, because it's not atypical for mass emails to get caught up in those.
that's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have another comment from Jason McCauley. Does the board intend to consider depositing dredging sediment in the Shuffle Creek area and working with the Indiana Railroad in the city of Bloomington to avoid having the routine draining?
Well, define routine draining. Are you referring to the drawdown?
I think he means drawdowns.
Okay. Adam, I don't know. Is this related to an email you told me you got today, or is this not?
Yeah, and I'm not sure about that. When we had met with the hydraulic dredgers, we had brought that up and they had talked about that was pushing the extent of their pumping capabilities. There would also have to be an analysis on impact and mitigation for utilizing that area. It's already a pretty well established wetland. I think if you were to kind of put sediment in that area, you would have to mitigate. So I think that was kind of one of the reasons it wasn't initially included. We'd have to look into flood stage potential as well, because that drains quite a bit of water into that Shuffle Creek area. And when we get heavy rains, it's already about up to road level. So I think there'd have to be a little bit of investigation to see if it would be a potential alternative.
Okay. There's another comment from Frank Van Overmeuren. Blackwell's constituents would have no idea why he was sanctioned, blacklisted, removed, or stripped of his officer duties. That is not fair to those freeholders in his portion of the district. Then Frank,
Go ahead, Mary Jane.
I was going to read the next comment, but do you want to
Well, I will tell you, Frank, that there was no stripping. That was a nomination and a vote, as we always do, for officers of the board. So your terminology is incorrect there. If he were to have been removed from the board, yes, that would be terribly unfair to the people in his district, and that was not done, and shouldn't have been done.
Well,
No reason to.
the board doesn't have the right to do that.
Correct. Absolutely not. Mary Jane, you had another one?
Frank has another comment. None of the information provided suggests any misconduct in any sense of the word. Blackwell and Van Overmeuren's actions may have been too ambitious for the board, but misconduct implies malfeasance. Steve Sims says, how do we get invites to the meeting? I'm going to suggest that maybe, Adam, could you say again how?
Yeah, send us an email to office@lakelemon.org, and we can send you the link to sign up for our constant contact database and listserv.
I had a question on that, just because I got something from Alex, you might know the answer to this, but like from my church, and it said, all you have to do is subscribe on our YouTube channel, and then you will get like notifications. So I'm gonna demonstrate my ignorance on how this is all set up, but is there a way through this live YouTube to be able to like sign up, if you will, and always get reminders?
Debbie, not necessarily.
Oh.
You will get a notification every time Lake Lemon Conservancy District goes live on YouTube. If you subscribe and then hit the bell icon, it will give you a notification just for the specific meeting, but it won't like sign you up for like an email list or give you a reminder because we don't set those times ahead of time on YouTube.
Does that help, Debbie?
It does, but we could, because our meetings are all set and we know that, but
And that list of meetings is on the website.
right.
True.
There's
Okay, let's take whatever you have there, and it's almost 6:15 and we're gonna get started with the rest of the meeting.
okay. So there are a few more comments.
Okay,
Frank Van Overmeuren, simply put, there is no showing of any allegation rising to the level of misconduct herein. Susan Snyder Salmon, at some point, can you tell us what to expect on the lake next weekend during the Dale England Cup? Is there a stay away, quote unquote, stay away description?
is that the end of your comments?
No.
Okay, Adam, hold that thought and then you can answer that at the end.
Okay, we should turn the comments off, shouldn't we?
All right, yeah.
Because they keep
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, read what you have.
Michael Kafori, not adequate time to enter questions. Frank Van Overmeuren.
Mike. All right, yeah, is this your last one?
No.
Okay, may I make a quick interjection? We are not required by law to have public comment at all. We believe in it as long as people are not abusing it and are being respectful. However, the law only requires us to allow you to observe, and that is in the public access manual, just for your reference. Go ahead, Mary Jane.
Frank Van Overmeuren, based on the above, it is the opinion of the Public Access Council that the LLCD violated the open door law for having an inappropriate executive session to discuss matters outside the scope of the statute. Michael Kafori, Herald Times article today referenced much about property values, yet in a previous meeting several years ago, after repeatedly referring to many concerns, including decreasing property values due to the fill-in. I'm not sure what that means. Then there are two comments from Jason McCauley.
Okay.
The city and the Indiana Railroad are very much in favor of supporting the costs. And then he further commented, freeholders should be made aware that depositing dredging material into Shuffle Creek around the Indiana Railroad trestle could avoid future drawdowns for the purpose of trestle maintenance. And the final comment is Frank Van Overmeuren. The above statements are from various sections of the Public Access Counselor as listed in his opinion. There are provided for the public's record by me. And that's the end.
Thank you. All right, we will now move on to the approval of the March 25th board meeting minutes. Any alterations to them if you've had a chance to look? Mary Jane?
Just one. It says that we adjourned the meeting on February 25th.
Oh, okay, good catch. Yes, please correct that. All right, any others? If not, I would entertain a motion, please, to approve those March 25th meeting minutes. What?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mary Jane. And a second, please, Michael Klitzing. Thank you.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All right, we will do roll call votes again, as has been our new tradition. All those in favor of approval of those minutes, please say aye. Mary Jane?
Aye.
Michael K? I'm trying to figure out what that is. Debbie?
I missed a lot of that meeting because of my internet, so
Oh.
maybe I shouldn't approve.
Okay, you can abstain. That's no problem.
Okay.
Janet? Les, I'm sorry.
Aye.
Les is using his wife's computer, so I had to rib him there. Steve
Yes, aye.
and Mike B.
Aye.
And I too am an aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Going to make a slight adjustment in the agenda. We have the pleasure of having Sarah Powers with us from Indiana University for our water testing agreement and results this evening. And I'm going to put her ahead of the treasurer's report to see if she can get excused a little bit early. Sarah, welcome. Always nice to see you. Are you with us? Uh-oh. There we go.
On the screen sharing.
There we go. Beautiful. Uh-oh.
We can't hear her.
Sarah?
I think you're muted.
I think I got it.
Yep, there you are.
My screen now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I put together a short presentation based on our summary results that I've already shared with the board. Sorry, now my things are moving around on me on my screen. Can you still see that presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So this is our Lemon Monitoring Program 2020 summary results. And this is the 2020 summary, this first section. So this just shows our sampling locations for this past year. We always sample Reed and Riddle, and that has been a constant in the monitoring program for many years. We've had multiple sites within the Chitwood location. Bean Blossom Creek, Bear Creek has been a constant. And then over the past year, we added a few additional sites, being Knob Creek, Possum Trot, that inlet there, the Overland Pond, we sampled a little bit, and then Shuffle Creek are the sites that we sampled this previous year. So the sample schedule in 2020 was weekly beach samples, which we report to the health department directly, and then copy Adam each week on that email so that he gets those results for the E. coli monitoring. So that's been very beneficial. Bi-weekly beach algal samples were conducted again with quick scans from IU. And then we additionally sampled May 18th, June 18th, and July 23rd. And you can see here the sample dates. The base flow event, we did one that was a normal flow, didn't have a lot of inputs from the watershed, and that was in June. And then our May and August samples both followed a rain event to some extent. So there was rain around that. So this is just a precipitation graph showing the inches of water during that time. So here I have a summary of the temperature and dissolved oxygen results for the lake during each of our sampling events in May, June, and then in July. So it's important to note, so the May and the July samples are part of our regular contract, and then we train some of our new staff in the summer. So we do an additional sampling for you typically in the month of June. So over the summer, so you'll see the oxygen here has the kind of triangles, and this one is for Riddle Point, and that stays relatively consistent in the surface water up to 3 meters deep, and then it starts to decrease, and this is normal with stratification of lakes during the summer. And then you'll see the temperature profiles here. In the spring, it's obviously cooler, and as we move through the season, it starts to warm up in the lake, especially at the surface, increasing to the mid 20 degrees Celsius, about 25 during the later summer. And then the same is pretty consistent at Reed Point with similar temperature and oxygen profiles, only we don't have full stratification at Reed Point, so we only sample at the surface water for the rest of our chemical parameters, but it follows that same increase in temperature throughout the season, which we expect to see. Okay. So seasonal changes. So here I've just presented some simple results of chlorophyll and the total phosphorus. You'll see the yellow triangles are the chlorophyll A concentrations, and chlorophyll is a plant pigment that's associated with the algal biomass in the water. And it's in response to the amount of phosphorus that's available. So the nutrient, basically the food source for the algae, and the increase over the summer. So you'll see both total phosphorus increases both at Riddle Point and at Reed Point over the summer, which increases those eutrophic lake conditions, which means the lake's becoming more and more productive over the summer, which is standard and typical of an Indiana lake and what we see every year at Lake Lemon during the summer. And you're welcome to ask me questions if you have them or need to stop me during this kind of overview of what we've already presented. So then I have the E. coli results for the summer. So E. coli is in number of colony forming units per, sorry, there's a typo. I have number 100 per mils, but it should be number of colony forming units per 100 mils. So I will get that corrected. The state recreation standard is roughly 200 colonies per 100 mils of water. So what we see here, we have each of our sampling dates on May 20th and June 23rd, or July 23rd, when we collected for each of the stream sites. Because that June sample was an extra add-on, we don't have all of those stream sites for those dates, but both of these follow rain events. And we see during the May event, most of our sites, other than Possum Trot and Shuffle Creek, exceed those state recreation standards. And then in July, we see fewer samples that are exceeding. So most of our Chitwood samples are below. Just the stream across the street that's coming in was over that threshold. Bean Blossom Creek, Bear Creek, and then Knob Creek, Possum Trot, and Shuffle Creek all below that standard. And then we have the beach results over here that were reported to the Monroe County Health Department. And all of those came in below the 200 colony forming units, below that recreation standard, which was good because the previous summer we did have one occurrence where we had a high value.
Sarah, I have a question on that last slide.
We can go back. There you go.
So what's your thought about the explanation that like at the July date, like a lot of these you see going down from May to July, but then there's a couple areas being Blossom Creek, Bear Creek and Chitwood Stream that went up. I just wondered if you had a thought on that.
I don't have a specific thought on why this would have happened.
Okay.
It could be due to inputs. We did have a rainfall event. In cold weather, E. coli can reproduce on its own in a stream system. So it can be there. So cold water helps perpetuate that problem. So what we're seeing in later July might be more of a result of overland flow coming into those stream systems from possibly, farm operations, animals, septics. It could be a variety of different things that could be contributing to those increases in the later summer directly. That did follow a high precipitation event. So it could be due to overland flow.
And I'll jump in here real quick, Sarah. We're able to partner with Brown County Regional Sewer District and Friends of Lake Monroe, who are doing a source study for E. coli in both our watershed and the Lake Monroe watershed. So next Tuesday, we'll actually be sampling. Luckily, Brown County is doing most of the way to the Bean Blossom corridor, and then we'll be doing 3 samples in Lake Lemon on the east end off Reed Point, and then at Riddle Point Park, and we'll be able to look at what the actual source samples are for the E. coli, whether it is livestock or whether it's humans. So that'll kind of give us a snapshot to be able to tell if it's septic input or if it's manure runoff from overland flow.
Question?
So, hey, Sarah. So what's the significance of the asterisks there?
I put those for ones that exceeded both.
Oh,
Okay.
both times. Okay, I see. Okay, thank you.
I didn't put a note about it, but I threw those on there.
I have a question.
Yes.
This is kind of for the board. Is this something that is repetitive year after year, or is this something that we just live with and ignore, or is this a low level of concern or an increased level of concern?
It's pretty steady year after year. As far as the locations that are high in E. coli, and I really think once we get the source sampling, that'll kind of give us more of an insight onto where what's causing the high levels. So I think it'll be a little bit of an insight once we have those results back. But the ones that are high are generally high year to year.
But I would add that this has kind of been on my radar this is my third year on the board, I think. And, Steve, our main responsibility under the lease with the city of Bloomington is really water quality. And so this is where we started asking questions about best practices and trying to look at septics and what do we need to do that other lakes that are doing to really protect the quality of the water for recreation. So have we done a lot about it? No, I don't think so. I think we've tested. Should we? Maybe. And this piece that Adam will have of information, which I think we've talked about for well over a year, would be forthcoming, our ability to do that. And that's why we actually had IU also increase their testing as well. So I think it is a concern and on our radar, at least from my perspective, and I don't mean to speak for the whole board.
I agree with you. And we're paying extra to try to get that specificity on the test, correct? Between the human and animal.
Correct. Yeah, the samples that were taken on Tuesday, those are kind of in addition to our normal sampling that we have. Once I found out the project was going on, essentially through Indiana Lakes Management Society, a couple of the other consultants that work with us, we found that was going on, so we're able to jump on the sample train to get these samples up to the lab. So we'll be paying for those. Are a little bit pricey, which is why we're only doing a handful. And then we also did last year, I reached out to Cordry Sweetwater and got some of their resolutions, and they actually do annual testing of septics on a rotating basis. So where they have, about a quarter of their residents have to submit testing. I believe it's every 4 years, to where they rotate around, to where they have to come in, do a dye test, and then prove that their septics are functional. And that's something that we've talked about. So I think once we have this information of the source data, if it comes back that the source is E. coli from human waste, I think that's a good time to say, all right, we're going to implement something like this.
When you said,
Yeah, I would.
What is the real additional cost? So how expensive is it really?
It's
$250 a sample.
$250.
Correct.
and that you're also getting a break with that because the sample is part of another project that's ongoing. So the transportation to get those samples to the lab won't be accounted for because they do have to travel 4 hours to South Bend. So that's also an 8-hour road trip we're all getting kind of a deal.
Okay.
So I believe we put that in the recommendations, the possible consideration of septic dye testing. And I think the fact that the Brown County Regional Sewer District plan also includes a lot of incoming tributaries to Lake Lemon. So whenever those sites were decided upon, they actually consulted with me in advance on where we were already sampling within the Lake Lemon, around Lake Lemon, so that we would know to be able to kind of partner and piggyback and look at what we've already been finding to make sure they selected good sites.
I guess this is Debbie. The only thing I would add for Steve's benefit is I'm trying to remember the timing of all this Knob Creek, but that's definitely on the radar and been an issue for a long time, and we're working through that with the state.
Yeah, I would just like to state, for me personally, as a board member, it is to me a high level of concern. I mean, when you look at those numbers, that's pretty scary. You know, you wouldn't want to be sticking your toe in the water after one of those rainstorms up there near some of these problem areas. And I do have a question for Adam. What does Cordray and Sweetwater do if somebody's septic doesn't pass? Do they have authority to do what? You know?
I think they don't allow them to get on the water, and then they give them a timeline to get it fixed. As conservancy districts, we have authority to mandate and enforce, and that would essentially go to the health department. You know, if you find a failing septic, we give it to the health department, and they would enforce that it gets fixed, or else the potential property could be condemned. So I think that's kind of the stick in the carrot is it's either up to date or it's going to the health department and going through that process.
Okay, thank you.
Of course, hopefully the health department would be a little bit more robust in their enforcement in such a situation than what they've been with the trailer park that is to our north.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah, are you still with us?
Yes, you're ready to continue?
Are we good on questions for the moment, gang? Okay, yes, please.
Comment about the Chitwood stream.
Yes, Mike?
The sample from the Chitwood stream is across the street to the north end of Loveland Farms, Black Angus Cow Farm. You can see the cows in the stream during the heat of the summer. Certainly there's got to be some kind of watershed coming through there directly from the Black Angus farm, I would have to suspect. The second part is the Carmel Ridge farm fields. The Walker farm is 33 acres and the Weddell farm is 39 acres. And annually, they pump tons of manure in these fields for fertilizer. If you ever come down Carmel Ridge or you ever come down Lick Creek, you can smell it. And the south end of both of those fields comes right into Bean Blossom Creek. So that has to have some kind of effect. I would be curious to know the difference between the animal and the human waste that we're going to be spending money to see those reports. But certainly you've got manure coming out of both fields, which is pretty concurrent with these numbers.
Yeah, those are absolutely exacerbating the situation with the runoff over those fields and land application. And I know the Brown County Regional Sewer District has quite a few testing sites for the Bean Blossom Creek corridor. So I think they'll be able to pinpoint where some of that's coming from. So it really should shed a little bit of light on the impact from the individual sources within the watershed.
I look forward to these results because we've been haggling about this for years, and I hate to have people think it's, you know, on them if it's really on the cows. But let's find out. Let's, you know, as we say all the time, let's get the facts and deal with what's true and see what can be done. So I'm very appreciative of this test. I'm just kind of tired of the question mark, to be honest.
It's a hard one. And we're hoping to get some good results with this test. It can be a little bit of a tricky test, but once we have those results, we can go into some of those nuances a little bit more. And we'll have access once they publish their results to everything throughout the watershed as well. So we'll be happy to kind of synthesize and share that at that point. Okay, so I only shared the trophic status for total phosphorus. You can find all of them in the report. This is the trophic status, which we use Carlson's Trophic State Index. It's the most widely used trophic state index, particularly for the Midwest region. And basically it provides an index of taking various parameters such as total phosphorus, chlorophyll A, or the Secchi depth transparency, and you can assign a trophic status to the lake based on that. Here I report Carlson, or the total phosphorus, the chlorophyll A and the Secchi are in the full report. But what we see is that the lake is remaining relatively constant. We've actually kind of seen a little bit lower trophic status for the past few years relative to what it was in the past, but you have the average with the green line, and then everything above the purple line is eutrophic. A little bit of a difference is we do see most of this summer's past summer in 2020's data being all in the eutrophic condition. So sometimes some of our earlier May samples are the orange shots, and those are usually, that can't be right, but the orange, usually our spring samples are a little bit lower, and then throughout the summer it increases, but we have relatively high throughout. But good thing it's not overall getting worse from what it was in the past. So I went ahead and put together a couple of additional figures that you're not going to see in that report today, because I wanted to make sure to share with you a summary of the algal analysis that we've been doing. So this includes the 2019 and the 2020 cells per milliliter of algae at each of the different locations that we sampled for. So in 2019 and in 2020, we started using an outside lab to do our algal identification for most of our samples. So the beach hasn't been included in those in the past, and we only did the additional samples that we took at Shuffle Creek, the overflow pond, and then the East Bay for that dredge permit for the overflow pond. Those were sent off as well. So the threshold for a recreational advisory for algae cells for in general is 100,000 cells of harmful algal bloom or blue-green algae found in a sample. So this shows you just the total cells per milliliter of algae that we found in each of our samples. So you'll notice in each of these that May and June tend to be lower, and then once we get into July and August, the samples will start to increase in the algal density. Right, and this is what we see with those increase in eutrophic conditions: more nutrients, warmer water, more algae overall. And we've seen this consistently. I'd like to point out the kind of differences here in scale. We have the overflow pond was 725,000 cells per mil, over 725,000 cells per mil of algae. And the next slide that I'm going to show you is just those harmful algal bloom producing ones. And the reason these are of a concern is because those are the algae that can produce toxins. So they're a specific group of the blue-green algae that produce toxins. Okay. And the benefit of sending these samples to this lab, and we shared some of these results last year as well, is that it gives you a pretty good accurate cell count, as well as the amount that's HAB cells. So what we see here is that in May and June, they're relatively low amounts across the board. So the first two being Reed and Riddle. And then this line here is roughly the 100,000 cell mark, where a recreational advisory would be posted. So they do this at Lake Monroe. If you've ever been out there and seen, they have signs. And it's not that you're closing the water body, but it's that you're posting a recreational advisory stating that you should not let your pets drink the water. You should take a shower when you're done recreating. And what we see is that in July, in both 2019 and 2020, both Reed and Riddle Point are meeting that expectation of an advisory. Okay. The overflow pond far exceeds that level, where we have over to 600,000 cells per mil. So this is 6 times that recreational advisory level. So that's some of the concern with the overflow pond. The East Bay was also high, but those are closer to 200,000 cells per mil. So I just wanted to kind of share that because I thought this provided a nice summary of some of those challenges with that overflow pond and those high algal densities that we're seeing there. Okay. Any questions?
Adam, did we post any of those warnings then at all?
That's on our recommendations, and Adam and I.
We shut down the beach in 2019.
I remember.
For a little bit. And that's in, we're getting signage for this year now. And then actually once we get into the contract, one of the price increases is that we'll be upping the testing at Riddle Point Park and sending it to the lab so we can get essentially next day results. So we can.
And when you shut it down, like Sarah was saying, like it this is the danger point, but don't drink the water, shower, and then when do you hit the point where boom, we shut it down? I mean, there's 2 grades there, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Sarah.
That's something that we can kind of come back to at the end of some of that with some of those recommendations. I just wanted to at least let you be able to visualize and see kind of the benefit of this testing and how we're going to get a little bit quicker turnaround and a little bit more accurate data. I have a couple more to show you of some of our other analysis of the algae. So this is,
I'll just say that I just really want to point out, because I'm an accountant for 40 years, that graphing is the scale is so off that, overflow would be way off the charts. I mean, people just need to recognize it. And I think you pointed it out, but the scale is off. It's not just a little bit more than East Bay. It's a lot more.
It's a lot more. And this was my quick and dirty to pull this together today so that you could visualize it. I did put a breakpoint axis in there.
You did a great job.
It would really for the scale. You wouldn't be able to see the other data, but I can work on that and pull something that's a little more accurate to see that.
You don't do that just because I mentioned it. I'm just wanting to be sure that everybody realizes that.
So Sarah,
it seems like we're trending a little bit higher last year compared to 2019, especially when we're looking at kind of the June and going into July. Any idea what might be causing that? I mean, is it temperatures? Is it, I mean, what's sort of driving those trends?
Temperature tends to be a really big aspect of that. Temperature and the amount of rainfall that you get in between sampling events will also impact those. So I personally want to go back and look a little bit more into the details. Since we've started sending these to Phycotech, I feel the results are better and they're more consistent. Previously, which is what I'm going to show you on the next one, when we train graduate students, we have less reliability in that data. So this is going off to a lab that, I mean, it was still good information and data, but now we're getting quicker turnaround and better quality of those results. But I do think it has a lot to do with temperature and nutrient inputs and the amount of rainfall that we get will factor in.
Sarah. Okay, the overflow pond. Several culverts have been added to the overflow pond, and they have been put in actually kind of the wrong spot. They've been too high. So the watershed runs down to the railroad, the Indiana Railroad. It fills in there, and there's a culvert under the railroad. It fills into the overflow pond, and it sits until it reaches the level of the culvert. Do you have any records before they changed the culvert of what some of these numbers would be? And would that make a difference if water is not flowing out of the pond into the lake since the culvert was raised too high?
So the culvert was put in, and now there is, at least to my visual observation, there is more mixing between than there was previous to the culvert change. So prior to the culvert change, I personally noticed that the algal bloom density seemed to be a little bit higher than it is now. We think that that's due to some of that actually mixing and going out into the lake, which is causing it to increase, as you can see in East Bay, down towards, so we took this across from the overflow pond out in the lake, and that there was 235,000 cells per mil, higher than it was at Reed and Riddle Point, which is close by there. So we think that some of that is actually now washing out into the lake and mixing and increasing the amount of algae that's in the lake rather than it just staying in the pond. So these are the results that I have for the beach and the overflow pond prior to us sending those out for analysis. And overall, we were seeing relatively low numbers. Sometimes we did just scans of those samples. These were the quick counts that I threw together. And the cells per milliliter seemed relatively low, around 60,000, 50,000 cells per mil in that overflow pond. And then last in 2020, when the grad students were doing quick scans of those, they seemed relatively low, but these numbers don't match with what we're getting from our analysis from Phycotech. So I feel their quality of results are much better than the quick scans that my graduate students can do. So from a price point standpoint, if I can't identify those samples myself, because that would be very costly, having them do it, I think sending these out to Phycotech is a much better idea to get us a lot more quality results overall. They use it's a flow cell technology that basically sends the water through and captures an image of every single algae that comes through the system. And then they identify those and can classify them relatively quickly through machine learning processes. Okay. So that was our quick kind of what our overflow scans and the beach looked like. And then in addition, I do want to note that in the earlier spring in May and June, we're not seeing those high values at Reed and Riddle Point. So I'm anticipating that we're really likely not going to see those high values. They may be random occurrences in the early spring, but we are more likely to see them in July and August. So we definitely want to focus and make sure we're sending those out at a minimum during July and August for a quick turnaround. They also have a very fast turnaround at Phycotech where we'll have a 72-hour wait period once they receive the samples, so we can collect it on a Monday and have it before the end of the week, those results. So future recommendations is the next section. So bacteria recommendations, what we're recommending is that we continue with the weekly beach samples in this future contract, and then that we do 2 tributary samples for the spring and the summer. So again, all of those tributaries 2 times, once in the spring and then once in the summer when we do our normal Reed and Riddle samples. And then a reduction in the Chitwood area. So previously we've sampled 4 sites in this area, and we're recommending that we reduce this to just sample 1 at the channel here where everything is mixing rather than continue. We know that they're doing a lot in that neighborhood to already try to come up with a solution. So rather than focusing on our efforts on collecting a bunch of samples that tell us pretty similar things, that we reduce that down. And then we'll also do 1 high flow event minimum with those samples. So if that occurs in the spring or in the summer, or an additional sampling if we miss those during a high flow time. Okay. Any questions on the bacteria recommendations? Okay, great. And then our HAB monitoring program is the other major recommendation that we have, and creates a few changes in the contracts and additional work. So this would be bi-weekly beach samples for HABs. These are the ones that would go to Phycotech for the fast turnarounds. These would only tell us HABs and not a full assemblage of all the algae in the sample. For our in-lake samples and the overflow that we would collect twice a season, once in May and once in July, August, those would have our full normal assemblage of what we would have done. We also recommend posting HAB signage at the boat launch and the beach. So this, I've provided an example of what IDEM uses, and the Army Corps of Engineers and DNR. They have different advisory levels, and then they tag on an advisory placard. So say we've reached that 100,000 cells per mil, you would put the advisory of yellow on it. If you reach a caution or a beach closed, then you add those placards. So yeah, those have those, and the overflow pond. And then in addition to that, we also are recommending that the Conservancy purchase a test strip for toxins. And this would allow you to then say we get that high over 100,000 cells per mil. You could do a rapid test for toxins to see if you have toxin producing algae. In the actual report, I put a link to the company and a website of where you can actually purchase those from Abraxas. They're relatively simple. You can buy different numbers in your test kit, which kind of play on how many you want. And then obviously it's probably going to decrease in price the more you get in the kit. Are there any questions on that? Okay, that was my last question.
Okay. I have a question.
Yes.
Okay. So, we have a proposal to use the overflow pond for dredge disposal. In fact, there's a public meeting going on tomorrow. And is it, from an ecological point of view, I want to see, is there some good science to say that if we did use the area for dredge disposal with the idea of it becoming a wetland, would that help with this toxic algae problem in that body of water? Can you say, do you know?
I believe that it would help with the toxic algae in the pond. I think that the algae in that pond is a human health concern, a public health concern. And I felt that way for a long time. I see people recreating on it when I know there's clearly a algal bloom there. And we're talking there's 90% of the algae in that pond in the peak of the summer are harmful algal bloom. So they could potentially be producing toxins. We haven't done toxin analysis on it. That's quite costly to do. These strip tests will kind of allow us a quick method of doing so. But I think that filling it in to some extent and creating a wetland would be a lot more beneficial ecologically to the area than having just the open water pond. The plants would be taking up the nutrients instead of the algae taking up the nutrients, right? So it's come to this idea of alternative stable states. Something is going to utilize those nutrients. If there are no plants in the pond to use the nutrients, then the algae are going to use them.
Yeah, okay. Is there anything in your current report that reflects that? Or just that was your response to my question?
That is my response to your question. And I am going to attend the meeting tomorrow. I'm happy to put something into writing about it. But my plan was to attend that public meeting tomorrow.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I think it would be good to have a science-based opinion on it. I think a lot of people just think it's going to be a swamp. Well, we now know that wetlands are more than a swamp, and they're ecologically beneficial to the world, and probably better than having a pit that breeds algae left and right to 6 or 7 times the what is safe. So that'd be great. Thank you.
Sarah, based on what you stated there with regard to your concerns about recreating in that overflow area, would that, since we know that's an area that does have high potential, would that be an appropriate location for a third sign that provides the warnings?
I would agree with that. There are a lot of people who not only recreate all along that roadside in that area. So providing signage there would probably be a really good idea.
Thank you.
Sarah, I think Les's idea is really good. And I think if you can put something together in writing that is science-based, that would really be helpful, because it's endangering the rest of Lake Lemon from what I understand, because that water is getting through the culvert and it's mixing in. So that's a secondary issue. Great report. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any further questions for Sarah?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, Mike.
Sarah, do you have results from the overflow pond prior to 2017?
Prior to 2017. I would have to go back to my files and check. I don't
Okay.
have it in front of
You
me.
probably should, if you're coming to the hearing tomorrow, you should probably bring them. Because
Okay.
that's been the issue with the culverts, with the underwater pipe, 2 underwater pipes, and the fault of the replacement of the culvert. So if you're going to bring science, bring real science, because you certainly have to bring prior to 2017 when the culvert was changed. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Mike.
Sarah, can
Was
I?
it
Sarah,
Pam?
Well, Mary Jane, am I hearing you? I don't see you all. Who was,
I have a question for Sarah.
I'll get back to you, Debbie.
Did I hear you correctly that you think that the mixing was worse before the culverts were changed, or it's better? And I mean, I'm not asking that correctly, I don't think.
She thinks, I believe she said she thinks there's more mixing of the pond and the lake since the new culverts were put in. Sarah, did I hear you right?
That's what, just from my personal observations, it looks like there is more flow between the ponds than there was historically when
Okay,
they redid that culvert.
okay, thank
I
you.
mean, I drive by it every day and I go out there and sample it. It's one of those key areas that I have started looking at since originally James reached out to me about the complaints of the rust color in that overflow pond. So I've been watching it ever since then.
Thank you.
Remember-
Debbie, you had a question?
Well, I'm wondering if I dreamt this or not. I thought that they did the culverts and then they came out and they did them again or something. Like I don't know, maybe Adam recalls. I just thought we had.
They redid one culvert that was at a high level, so they came back a second time and put one, I believe, towards the western side that was at normal pool level.
Okay, that's what I thought. I thought that we took care of that, or what we thought was a good correction, which maybe wasn't. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, to
think it's
clarify
important
on that culvert thing, my recollection was in the flood of 2008, I think the first one got washed out, and when they replaced it, they didn't bother to dig it out. They just stuck another one in on the top of it, and therefore the water no longer exchanged. Then here, a couple of years ago, they put that one in that Adam was talking about to the west. Now, there's also been some discussion about possible underwater culverts, but I don't know if that's ever been verified or not. So there's two that we know about exist for sure. One is only effective during high water. The other one's kind of far down on the other end to the west, but apparently it does help. So just wanted to clarify that, at least according to my memory.
Well,
I've
one
recently
thing,
been- sorry, go ahead, Michael.
one thing I think is important to note too is the culverts are not under our jurisdiction. That's if I correct, that's under the highway department. So those corrections weren't done by us, or we really didn't have that much influence. It was really the highway department that has responsibility for it.
Mhm.
That's a good clarification, Michael. That's true. All right, Sarah, are you now thanking me for moving you up in the agenda?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Because I think you're allowed to leave us, and we really do appreciate your expertise. Every year I look at that big report and think, oh, good, she's going to tell us about it. And you'd think after a dozen years I'd understand it a little better, and I do. But you always make it easier to.
We have the final contract price on that, Sarah, so we'll have to go ahead and approve.
Yes, I have your final. Wait, I actually received the draft of the final contract from IU today. And that price we have in there is for a total of $19,027. And I provided a summary at the beginning of the scope of service that I sent to you that includes what those price increases are from and what caused those. Just to be clear, a lot of that is the algal identification, having those beach samples sent off bi-weekly. plus for 2019, our lab covered the cost of sending the samples to Phycotech because it was our first year using them, and we switched all of our algal identification goes to Phycotech now in our lab. But in 2019, we shift that. IU covered those costs, and then last year we did part of it, and the Conservancy covered some of it when we did those initial additional samples for the dredging permit. So that's a huge chunk of that contract is actually $5,100 goes towards algal sampling, solely to try to make sure that we are monitoring these harmful algal blooms adequately. So that's contract work. And then, so that would be broken into 3 payments. The first is $7,000 upon acceptance of the agreement. And then they divided the rest of it into 2 payments. One on January 1st of 2022 and one on June 30th of 2022. The rest of the contract looks the same as the previous one did, just with those minor changes. And I can send that to Adam to share with you all that draft. But once you've approved that draft, then we'll send you the final one for signature.
And it is the 2-year contract. We do have $8,000 budgeted for this year for this portion of the contract.
So the 19,000 is a 1-year cost or a 2-year cost? Okay. All right.
Okay. So that's something that the board needs to lay eyes on prior to moving forward, and you don't have it yet?
I sent the scope of service with the budget. I do have the draft contract in lieu of you asking me if you wanted me to change anything. So basically,
Okay.
I would like to see if we can get a motion to go ahead and approve a contract with IU for the 2-year testing not to exceed the state.
Okay.
That way we can continue with that and start testing here.
That seems fair. Mary Jane?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. May I have Michael K. second? Any further discussion? All right, we'll go down the line. Mary Jane, how do you vote?
Aye.
I am an aye, by the way. Michael K.
Aye.
Debbie?
Aye.
Les?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Mike B?
I'm an aye.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries. Sarah, once again, thank you for your time, and we look forward to working with you ongoing.
And before Sarah jumps off real quick, I'd go ahead and like to toot hers and my horn. Sarah was just elected as the president for the Indiana Lakes Management Society at our annual conference 2 years ago. And I was elected as the vice president.
Wow.
Both of us running the state Indiana Lakes Management Society.
All right.
sounds like-
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Great.
Or is it condolences? I don't know. No, that's wonderful. And it seems like we're in very good hands. Good to know. You guys will make a good team.
Sarah, why don't you lobby the legislature so they fix our lakes and rivers and streams like they do in states that surround us?
Yeah, we're working on it more and more. We have somebody who is big in the lobbying group and doing more with legislation than we ever have in the past. So it's been good.
Ohio gives $15 million to the DNR for lakes, rivers, and streams for clean water. So go get them.
Yeah, absolutely. I echo that.
I will be out Monday to collect our first sample and be out there with my class the following Friday. So thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good evening.
You too. I'm gonna jump off.
Thank you. All right, Debbie, thanks for waiting. We come to your treasurer's report.
Okay. Hopefully you've all had a chance to take a look at the compiled financial statements that are dated April 16th, 2021. You know, all that means is they take our numbers and put it in a format. There's no review or audit or anything like that expressed. But as of March 31st, 2021, we had total current assets of $1,395,000. Remember that $988,000 of that is our bond proceeds. And we have fixed assets of a little over $1 million. So our total assets are about $2.5 million. Liabilities, pretty much the bonds payable. We've got some withholdings of a few $1,000s, but overall liabilities $1,203,476. That gives us net equity, if you will, or net worth of $1,260,450. Year to date, for the 3 months ended March 31st, we have a net loss to date of $137,000. We haven't gotten any of our tax revenues yet, and we have seasonal business operations. And so that doesn't give me any cause to pause. If you look at just March, our overall income was $18,371. Our expenses were almost 30,000, just under 30,000. So the month of March, we had a loss of $11,618. If you look at the income for March 21 versus March 20, it's up about $6,000 or $7,000, and I found that interesting because about 5,000 was watercraft permits and an extra 1,000 in launch fees, which must be due to the warm weather, I'm guessing. So our expenses were less, though, so that's a good thing. Our income was up and our expenses were down compared to the year before. And the year before, we had some consulting engineer fees, some disposal site prep, and some insurance that kind of accounted for that $6,000 additional expense. Adam and I did talk. The only thing that was kind of on my radar was our 6330 account. As I said before, looking at the actual to budget doesn't tell you a lot because the budget's for the whole year, the whole 12 months. But our consulting engineering fees are over budget at this point. We budgeted $50,000 and we've spent to date $61,693. And we also had other professional fees that are also over budget by about $10,000. So the good news is the bond repayment is in there, so we have to make 2 payments. We only have to make 1 payment. So I'm sure we will just have some of these budget transfers at the end of the year. Did anyone have any questions about the financials? I did talk to Adam. We're going to have to work with DLGF just on the budget because, when we did the budget last year, our budget committee, we thought we were getting the $1 million in this year. So even if you're looking at the total income and what we budgeted, we really got the $1 million last year. So we'll get that straightened out once we meet with the folks at DLGF. I do want to, hopefully you enjoyed the graphs. We did get, Adam worked on it, and we did get, like, on the income comparison, we took that $1 million out from last year because it just skews everything. You can't really look at our operations. And I think that that's what we can control and what we want to look at. But we also developed a previous year income comparison, and kind of gives you the actual dollars, year to date. So hopefully you guys found that. If you didn't want to get down in the details, hopefully you could look at the high level. Any questions or comments on the financials? Okay. Well,
I have a
moving in.
question for you, Debbie.
Go ahead.
I texted you when you were in Florida about coding our disposal site prep. We
Right.
have 3 disposal sites, and so it's hard to see which disposal site we're expensing when we just expend 1 disposal site prep.
Yeah.
And so I
Well, I
didn't know.
think that's how we captured on the general ledger. That's how we budgeted in that level of detail. So I guess I don't even know if we have that level of detail in the general ledger. My question, Mike, is like, what are we going to do with that information? It could be, paralysis by analysis. Like a lot of people want to capture over my 40 years in working as a CPA, a lot of people want to capture little things, and it doesn't really change what we do operationally. But I'm happy to talk about that. But I kind of just put it off, thinking that, and I told you I'd be happy to chat with you about it, but I don't think we change anything this year. We've already got the budget approved, and it's all, budgeted by line item. We haven't budgeted by site at all.
I guess my point would be that, to kind of figure out how much money we spent on the land-based site on South Shore Drive, and then how much more we're going to spend on the land-based site on South Shore Drive when we've already spent money prepping disposal sites this year. But that's the reason for the coding, or to create another account number. That's the reasoning for that.
We really shouldn't have any more disposal site prep cost on the South Shore Drive, because any rest of preparation should be done under a contract once we work with somebody for the earthwork.
And some of that, like, yeah, and last year we had, last March, disposal site prep of like over $5,000 too. So,
that's one of the benefits too of having our dredger salaried now, is that we can work in those sites on South Shore, and the work that we were doing was not coming out of our disposal prep line item. It was just within the salary for Clint.
Adam and I can talk about it a little bit more, Mike, and think that does beg the question, how do you allocate salaries? We have to keep the number of hours here and the number of hours there. And because salaries probably are a large cost, it's kind of like, so we can talk about it and see how difficult it would be and how beneficial. But again, we don't have it budgeted. Okay.
All right.
All righty. Everybody has reviewed, hopefully, the vouchers. I'd like to ask for approval. There's $21,522.49. Our largest expenditures, other than payroll, of the remaining $14,000, we paid Burke Engineering for Rule 5 and design work of about $5,400, and we had push boat drive shaft replacements for about $3,100. So that's like more than half of our $14,000. I didn't see anything else that was a concern to me, and I talked to Adam about a couple of the expenditures, so I'm fine with them, and I would ask for a motion to approve.
Like you've got Michael to move.
Make a motion to approve.
Mary Jane, second.
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay. All righty. I'm an aye. Michael Klitzing.
Aye.
Pam.
Aye.
Les.
Aye.
Michael B.
I'm an aye.
And Steve.
Aye.
Don't forget Mary Jane.
I'm an aye.
Oh, I thought I got you in the beginning.
It's all good.
It seems kind of funny. It seems kind of funny to me when someone, I don't know the Robert's Rules of Order, but when someone makes the motion and then they second it, don't you just assume they're an aye?
Especially in the virtual world, we gotta be visual so people see. But
all right, thank you all.
Thank you, Debbie. All right, Michael Klitzing, you are up next with an ever-changing tunnel road scenario.
Absolutely. Included in the board packet was a proposal that I put forward from my neighborhood, which is through a grassroots efforts looking to make improvements to our private road. We received some information through Adam today from the City of Bloomington Utilities that really kind of makes the request something that would not be appropriate for us to consider today. We learned that there is an existing easement between the City of Bloomington and the property owners in my subdivision that basically takes this out of the hands of Lake Lemon Conservancy District. So CBU has advised us that this is something that needs to be addressed between CBU and the subdivision, and it's my understanding that they'll be reaching out to the appropriate individuals in my subdivision to address. But they had advised us that we are not a party to it as the Conservancy District, and likewise, we should not be funding it. So it would be hard for me to go against our landlord and do something that they've told us not to do. So for that reason, I'm not asking for any action from the board tonight on this particular item. And if there's new information, we'll bring it forward when it's appropriate.
Well, good luck with your project. That's a major undertaking, and hopefully it goes well for you. Okay, that brings us to the manager's report. Adam?
All right. First, we have an LLCD statement about the public access counselor and his opinion. The statement was drafted in conjunction with our attorney, the chair and vice chair of the board. I'm just going to read the statement. On December 21st, 2020, the Lake Lemon Conservancy District received a notification of 2 formal complaints from the Indiana Public Access Counselor, the PAC, under the open door law. The 2 complaints were, first, in regards to the legality of an executive session that was held on June 20th, 2020, and second, a complaint that the board limited of public input during a public bond hearing on July 18th, 2020. The June 20th executive session was held under a specific section of the open door law involving reviewing misconduct of an officer of the board by reaching beyond his authority to obligate the district to a financial arrangement other than what was approved by the board. The public bond hearing does not fall under the purview of the PAC, as it is required under a different statute governing bond hearings, on which the LLCD was advised by its bond counsel. Furthermore, according to the law, a formal complaint under the open door law must be filed within 30 days of the alleged wrongdoing. The LLCD concluded the complaints, which were received by the public access counselor in December 2020, does not meet the statutory requirement of timeliness and should not have been taken up by the public access counselor at all. Based on the guidance from LLCD counsel, we concluded that the public access counselor's opinion is erroneous and without legal merit. No further action on this issue will be taken by the LLCD.
I would like to respectfully add that no further public comment will be taken on this issue. The matter is closed. Adam?
All right. Next up, we have Park Master Plan updates. We have been working on the gatehouse. The original gatehouse was torn down, and it looked better as soon as it disappeared. The gatehouse, the structure is complete. It's roofed in. They actually ran electricity. Everything material-wise seems a little bit slow. The next Tuesday, we're having the siding and limestone for the gatehouse delivered. The builders are hoping to achieve substantial completion by the end of next week into the weekend. So we're planning for a rough-in inspection early to mid next week. And I cannot wait to have this thing open so I can get the public on weekends and sales out of the office. So it's coming along very nicely. We also do have the playground got down here. We've been working since Monday to install that. Today it was cemented. It's very nice looking. We do still need to get the engineered mulch for it. So we have to do that. So it'll be a little bit more cost. I think we'll be able to come in under budget. But if anybody wants to donate money for mulch, feel free, and we would let you do that. So that's going along pretty well. And I think there'll be some substantial improvements. We've also opened up the shelter house, taking all the doors, the windows off. This has been a big request for a while. I think it was originally sealed up to promote the rental. That doesn't happen that frequently, so we're going to let the people use it. So I think between the entrance of the park, having a very nice playground, being able to utilize the shelter, it's going to be a pretty greatly improved experience for the utilizers of the park. So I'm really, really happy with the progress that we've made on that. And when we open up, it'll be a very much improved park.
Excuse me, can I just chime in for a second? Because I've actually gone over and bugged Adam and Alex, and I have to tell you, even with things not completely done, it is, I think, a terrific start on the park master plan itself. And everybody who worked on that should be congratulated. And I agree, people are going to come into the park and think that they have arrived someplace nicer than they used to be. It used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice.
Thanks for thinking of us, Mike,
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
and donating that.
We actually expanded the beach area a little bit as well, and we're expanding the swimming area, which are two really big requests. So it's going to be an overall increased user experience. Next, we'll get into the sediment management projects.
Did you want to say something, Mike?
I was just going to say too, it's amazing just opening the shelter, how much it improved the shelter, and they were going to work on some of the rotten wood and everything in it too. But it actually feels a little bit nicer, and it certainly feels actually more open and airy. So it definitely will be an improvement for people that are using that facility.
Very nice. Next up, we have the sediment management project. We have prepped both the possum trot and the spillway sites. So they are both open and ready for use this year. We're actually removed 220 triaxles of sediment from the possum trot site to be able to open that up. So it was a pretty substantial disposal site prep this year, and that's why we increased the budget to account for this need. So we'll be good for this season, and it's definitely nice having extra money in there so we can substantially get rid of the dirt, which is our #1 issue of the longevity of that site. So we also have both the barges are up and running. We had the small motors rebuilt by Chuck at Pine Grove over the winter time. Those have been installed, and they actually came out and helped to wire that up the other day. So the small barge is running. The big barge, we braced up the drive shafts. Just over time, these things get kind of worn out. So we did some substantial improvements and reinforcement on the push boat, including replacing all the motor mounts. So we're on the water, and I think we're in a good position for the start of the season. And I'm happy to finally be running on that. Also, we did have the logging has started on South Shore Drive. As we know, with the updated Rule 5 permit and the expansion of the usable area for our upland site on South Shore Drive, we actually had to clear out some acreage on both sides of the stream so we can spoil dirt in those areas. I was able to work with the Helmsburg sawmill and actually trade the labor for the trees. So we incurred no cost for the prepping of that site, which was awesome because that would have taken our guys a while to do. So we're able to make that trade and work with them. We also, I just want to mention that we do have the DNR hearing coming up tomorrow for the DNR construction in a floodway permit. This is one, to allow the actual hydraulic dredging to occur, and two, to allow the potential use of the overflow pond. Again, we encourage everybody to come out, voice your concerns, voice your support, just come out and be heard for this. And that is at 5 p.m. at the Abe Martin Lodge at the Brown County State Park. We've also, about a month ago, we advertised for earthwork bids, and we had wanted to get these bids in prior to signing a dredging contract so we can try to get the overall cost. So I have received 2 bids, one from Infinity Solutions and one from United Excavating. We actually did reach out to about 7 different companies that received our informational packets. And these are the 2 that we received back today. So I'll go ahead and open these. I'll read off just the total overall cost. And then I don't expect that we'll select one today. We'll take these back, review them, look at the overall picture, and then either award a contract at the May meeting or have a specialty meeting at the beginning of May just for these 2 contracts. So first I'll open United Excavating and General Contracting. So it's fun to open. You just gotta go through and find the actual cost. All right, the overall cost for the site prep from United Excavating is $462,413. And that was from United Excavating. And then from Infinity Solutions, Infinity Solutions came in at $422,947. So those are the.
Can you repeat the first amount, Adam? I'm sorry.
Yes.
It's 462, 413.
Thank you.
Correct. And then the second one was 422,947.
And it was the deadline today? No.
Deadline was
Yesterday. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So I think what we need to do is take these, review with the budget committee, the overall cost of the project, and look over the bids, and then come back with a recommendation to the board.
And the dredging, we went over this today, Adam, but remind the board about the dredging extensions.
Yes, there was extensions from 2 companies through the June meeting. We received an extension from Heartland Dredging through mid-May, and they said if we need to take more time than that to come back to them, and they will talk to their project bond holder about extending that eligibility time.
What I'm getting at is that.
Which is why we might need a interim meeting or something.
Correct.
We might, yeah. And what I'm getting at is that it seemed to us when we started this conversation that the board would like to have both pieces of the puzzle. That
Right.
they did not want to bid on the dredging and then wait on the earthwork. So we're hoping to sew this all up is the plan. Okay.
And
Very
those
good.
costs were over $200,000 less than what we received before with the combined bids.
Right, right.
So we'll take these and review them with the budget committee, and we'll come back to the board with a recommendation.
Very well. Okay. Very good. That brings us to new business correspondence for future agenda. Anyone?
I'll mention one thing. I've been working, there's a new MS4 coordinator, which is Monroe County Combined Sewer System Overflow. It's a long acronym, but I've been working with them, and they're actually coming out to assess the long causeway and look at doing a 2-foot plus expansion along the edges of the causeway. And as I'm working with a new coordinator too, Mike, I will look in and see if they actually have any of the as-built or diagrams for potential flowways or the culverts that were under that initially. So hopefully they can have some of that original documentation, which would answer some of these questions about how many and the location of these culverts that are there.
I thought we were going to put divers down there. Didn't we decide to do that at some point? No? Okay.
We had mentioned it, but we have not acted on it.
Okay.
I thought we thought it was not a good, it was because we didn't want to use the people who were doing the dam, right?
Right. That was it. Okay.
All right.
Question,
Yes.
Adam, just I've heard from at least one of my constituents and me as well. Not received our dock permits yet. Are they in the works or?
They are in the works. With COVID and everything, it's been very slow because they have to go to the City of Bloomington Utilities and be signed as well prior to us sending them out. So they're working on it. I think we've got about 100 out, and we're trucking along on those.
Okay.
I had a quick question. Adam, are any of you hearing any issues with regard to the marina not being in that whatever barge business, not operating it like Deaton or somebody's on? I mean, is that working out okay for our freeholders?
Deaton's on the water now.
Deaton is on the water, and actually a couple of my neighbors and I are working on moving a bunch of stuff around. And Mike Deaton was here yesterday and spent time with us to, look at the project. And I think he's very responsive. And we all think they may be a really good solution.
Good,
So,
good.
Really
Glad to
painted
hear it.
up-
we'll see.
yeah, they really painted up Archimedes, the barge that the marina owned. It
Did
looks
they?
new now. They did a full paint job on the crane and the boat, and they're out there moving today.
Okay, good.
That's good to know. You can't have docks without the barge, that's for sure. All right, the next meeting, gang, we're still in our regular year schedule, so it'll be at 6 p.m., May 27th, heading into Memorial Day weekend, if my calendar serves me right. And we will be in touch as to whether that will continue to be in a virtual format or if we are going to be able to meet in a different way. So as I always say, stay tuned. With all that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn, please.
I'll make that motion.
Okay,
Second.
Debbie, I'll take Debbie's motion and Les, you'll second?
Yeah, I'll second, and I'm hungry.
Okay, okay. We'll go down the roll. Mary Jane?
Aye.
I am an I. Michael K?
Aye.
Debbie?
Aye.
Les?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Mike B? All right, motion carries. Have a great evening. See you soon.